I'd like to begin by addressing what unfolded in Washington, D.C. this week. What we witnessed was an assault on democracy by violent rioters, incited by the current president and other politicians. As shocking, deeply disturbing, and frankly saddening as that event remains, we've also seen this week that democracy is resilient in America, our closest ally and neighbor. Violence has no place in our societies, and extremists will not succeed in overruling the will of the people. As Canadians, I think we've been all reflecting on our own country, something I spoke with the premiers about last night, about the fact that democracy is not automatic. It takes work every day, about what a real accomplishment it is to maintain a political system in which the losing side gracefully concedes and in which rival political parties between elections work together for the common good. We have this in Canada because Canadians make it possible. Canadians expect their political leaders to protect our precious democracy by how we conduct ourselves. We have seen this manifest in unanimous consent in our Parliament for our main COVID-fighting measures at a time when the government holds a minority of seats. We see it in the cooperation between the federal government and provincial and territorial governments, regardless of political stripe. Canadians expect debate. Debate in service of all Canadians. Debate that is grounded in a shared acceptance of the facts. In a diverse country, there will always be diverse perspectives, and it is through respect for those differences that we create a stronger Canada. Canadian democracy didn't happen by accident, and it won't continue without work. We must always work to secure our democracy and not give comfort to those who promote things that are not true or give space for hatred or extremism. Hier, lors de notre 24e réunion des premiers ministres des provinces et territoires, on a commencé par parler de ce qui s'est passé aux États-Unis cette semaine. On a tous été choqués de voir des extrémistes incités par le président agir avec autant de violence pour saccager le Capitole à Washington. Ça nous rappelle à quel point on ne peut pas prendre notre démocratie pour acquis. La démocratie au Canada, c'est pas un hasard. Et ça ne va pas continuer sans effort. Les Canadiens s'attendent à des débats honnêtes qui servent leurs intérêts. Des débats qui partagent le même ensemble de faits. Nous devons tous travailler ensemble pour protéger la démocratie contre ceux qui font la promotion de mensonges et qui créent de l'espace pour la haine et l'extrémisme. Avec les premiers ministres, on a aussi abordé la question des centres de soins de longue durée, des mesures pour les voyageurs, du dépistage et des vaccins. Notre gouvernement travaille sur les vaccins sans relâche depuis des mois. Le processus de distribution est réglé au quart de tour. La distribution des doses, surtout pour le vaccin de Pfizer, représente des défis complexes. Mais grâce aux efforts de tous, on a pu commencer à distribuer des doses plus tôt que prévu, à partir du 21 décembre. On fait tout ce qu'on peut pour obtenir le plus de vaccins possible, le plus rapidement possible. Le major général Fortin va présenter les chiffres en détail aujourd'hui. En décembre, nous avions distribué près d'1 demi-million de doses à travers le pays, incluant un peu plus de 88 000 doses au Québec. D'ici la fin janvier, ce sera environ 1,3 million de doses du vaccin de Pfizer et de Moderna qui seront livrées aux provinces et aux territoires. On veut tous que la pandémie se termine au plus vite. Des gens qui meurent, des hôpitaux débordés, des emplois menacés, ça fait plaisir à personne de voir ça. On est en temps de crise et les Canadiens veulent des résultats. Je les comprends et je leur promets qu'on travaille sans relâche. On continue de collaborer, tous les ordres de gouvernement ensemble, comme une grande équipe. Plus que jamais, c'est le temps de rassembler nos forces pour battre la COVID-19 une bonne fois pour toutes. Yesterday, at our 24th First Ministers' meeting, the Premiers and I discussed the vaccine rollout across the country. We agreed that it is vital that we work together as Team Canada to get vaccines delivered, distributed and administered as quickly and efficiently as possible. The Premiers and I also discussed ways to combat misinformation. Vaccines are safe and effective, and everyone should be doing their part by getting vaccinated once it's their turn. This week, over 124,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine were delivered to 68 sites across the country. Over 208 Pfizer doses will be delivered weekly for the rest of January. On Moderna, by the end of next week, over 171,000 doses will be delivered to the provinces and territories. We're on track to deliver approximately 1.3 million doses of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines by the end of January. Quantities of both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine will scale up in February. Remember that Canada has the most vaccines secured per capita in the world, which means that by September, we will have enough vaccines for every Canadian who wants one. Our top priority remains keeping you and your family safe. I know things are tough right now. Frankly, it's frightening to see cases rise at home and around the world day after day. But you're not in this alone. We continue to be there for you. We're continuing to send millions of pieces of PPE to protect healthcare workers and communities. We will do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. For you, for family, for your communities, we will have your backs. And on that note, I can also confirm that yesterday, the Canadian Armed Forces approved a request for support to the Fort Albany First Nation in Ontario as they deal with the COVID-19 outbreak. The Canadian Rangers will be activated on the ground until at least January 11th. By working together, we will get through this. Alors que plusieurs provinces annoncent des mesures plus strictes pour diminuer la propagation de la COVID-19, plusieurs personnes s'inquiètent de ce que ça signifie pour leur emploi et pour leur famille. Notre gouvernement va continuer d'être là pour vous. Ce matin, nous avons appris que l'économie canadienne a perdu 63 000 emplois en décembre, surtout des emplois liés à l'industrie du service. Depuis le début de la pandémie, notre gouvernement a agi rapidement pour soutenir notre économie et pour soutenir directement les Canadiens. Vous pouvez être certain qu'on fait tout ce qu'on peut pour vous aider à traverser ces moments difficiles. Measures like the wage subsidy are making a real difference for workers and businesses who need it. For a promising new company like StrongPoint in Toronto, the wage subsidy helped keep employees on the payroll when things got tough in the spring. It was a lifeline for them. The same goes for staff at the communication firm, the Humphrey Group. The wage subsidy helped them retain their hardworking employees and get ready for recovery. It's not good news for anyone if local businesses have to close shop for good because of this global crisis. In the second wave, this is not the time to take the foot off the gas. It's the time to keep doing everything we need to ensure that our economy stays resilient and that workers and families can weather this storm. Mercredi, le Québec a annoncé un renforcement et un prolongement des mesures de confinement. C'est important que vous sachiez que le gouvernement fédéral est là pour soutenir les provinces alors qu'elles doivent prendre des décisions difficiles. Pour les Québécois et pour tous les Canadiens, les mesures sont en place pour vous aider. La subvention salariale est là pour les travailleurs et les petites entreprises. Pour ceux qui en ont besoin, on a changé l'assurance-emploi pour soutenir un plus grand nombre de personnes. On ne vous laissera pas tomber. Comme je l'ai dit plus tôt, les vaccins continuent d'être livrés et on a des raisons de rester optimistes. Mais pour l'instant, il faut suivre les directives de la santé publique. Restez chez vous, évitez les rassemblements et servez-vous de l'application gratuite Alerte COVID. Ceux qui décident de voyager à l'encontre des avis de la santé publique doivent faire une quarantaine obligatoire de 2 semaines en rentrant au pays. Si cette quarantaine n'est pas respectée, les conséquences légales sont très sévères. Depuis hier, il est aussi obligatoire pour les voyageurs d'avoir un résultat de test de COVID-19 négatif avant de pouvoir prendre l'avion pour leur retour. Quand on se compare avec les autres pays, nos mesures aux frontières sont parmi les plus strictes au monde. Now, more than ever, it is crucial that you keep doing your part to protect yourself, to help our healthcare workers, and to save lives. Wear your mask, avoid gatherings, and use the COVID Alert app. The app has now been updated to work on older models of iPhones, such as the iPhone 5, 6, and 6 Plus. Almost 6 million people have downloaded the app. And of course, the more Canadians use it, the more powerful this tool becomes. So keep it up, and remember, we're all in this together. This morning, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that today marks the 1-year anniversary of the Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 tragedy. As a country, we remember all those we lost, and we mourn with their families and friends. Of the victims aboard that flight, 138 of them were on their way to Canada. To the family members and friends who had planned to pick their loved ones up at the airport, to everyone who was looking forward to seeing your beloved partner, child, or parent, I cannot imagine your pain. Know that you are in our thoughts today. This kind of unthinkable tragedy must never happen again. That's why, over the past year, our government developed the Safer Skies Initiative and worked with partners around the world to help keep civilian aircraft away from dangerous conflict zones. Today, on the first National Day of Remembrance for Victims of Air Disasters, we remember and honor all those we lost. The victims of PS 752, just like the victims of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, Air India Flight 182, and other air disasters, will never be forgotten. We will be there for each other through tough times. It's what Canadians do. Whether it's grieving for elders we lost in long-term care homes, whether it's mourning together for victims of international tragedies, or whether it's standing with courageous young people like Isabella Kulak, a member of Cote First Nation Saskatchewan, who wore her ribbon skirt to school to celebrate her culture last month. Let's remember who we are, people who are there for each other. In tough times, we pull together. We look out for each other. We support each other. It's what Canadians have learned to do through generations of dealing with winter, dealing with vast spaces, being there for each other, being there for our neighbors. We need to make it through this winter now. We need to pull together while staying apart. We need to hang in there. Spring is coming. Summer is coming. It always does. This one will be better if we can pull together right. So stay safe, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to questions from media. We'll start on the phone. One question, one follow-up. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Première question. La Forêt, TVA Nouvelles. À vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On a senti cette semaine que le ton avait monté avec le président du Conseil de la Fédération et le Premier ministre du Québec concernant, entre autres, les mesures que vous voulez appliquer nationales sur les CHSLD et le fait aussi qu'il y avait une discordance entre ce que vous avanciez comme chiffre sur les vaccins et ce que le Québec avait. Est-ce que vous reconnaissez qu'il y a eu un problème? Est-ce que vous vous êtes excusé auprès des premiers ministres?
Je pense que ça demeure extrêmement important qu'on travaille ensemble, qu'on surveille que tout le monde est en train de faire tout ce qu'on peut pour aider les Canadiens à passer à travers. Mais ce que les Canadiens veulent voir, c'est leurs différents dirigeants, leurs responsables en train de collaborer pour s'assurer qu'on est en train de faire tout ce qui est nécessaire pour aider les gens. C'est exactement la conversation qu'on a eue hier soir, que ce soit nos inquiétudes par rapport à nos aînés et la volonté de bien des provinces de travailler ensemble pour partager les meilleures façons d'assurer la protection de nos aînés dans les centres de longue durée, ou bien de s'assurer qu'on est en train de passer toutes les informations sur les projections au niveau des livraisons de vaccins et la livraison des vaccins directement aux Canadiens. On va continuer de travailler ensemble. C'est ce à quoi les Canadiens s'attendent. I think one of the things that we've seen throughout this pandemic is the need for different orders of government to work together. And yes, we need to make sure everyone is doing their part, and we'll encourage each other to do the best we very much can. But at the same time, we do have a Team Canada approach that makes sure that we're all working together for Canadians, because that's what Canadians want to see. Whether it's by ensuring that all the information is flowing directly to the provinces as we get it on vaccines from the companies. We've clearly stated the predictable schedule for the month of January, and we'll have more information soon for February and March. Or whether it's how we're sharing best practices across the country on successes in long-term care, which is something that every corner of this country is dealing with. We're going to continue to work together for the benefit of Canadians.
Est-ce que vous reconnaissez qu'il peut y avoir un délai entre la livraison des doses et lorsqu'elles arrivent aux provinces?
Je pense qu'on est en train d'assurer une meilleure efficacité à tous les jours. C'est une mobilisation énorme de vaccination qui a commencé, et c'est une bonne chose, quelques semaines avant même qu'on aurait pu s'attendre, avec 425 à peu près 1000 doses au mois de décembre, ce qui est une bonne chose, mais évidemment, le temps que ça prend pour établir les processus, pour livrer ça de façon efficace et sécuritaire, il y a toujours une période de rodage du système, et on est là pour continuer d'aider les provinces qui accélèrent le pas d'une façon assez impressionnante au cours de cette semaine et des semaines à venir.
Merci. Prochaine question, operator.
Merci. Thank you. Next question, Ryan Tumulty, National Post. Line open.
Yeah, good morning, sir. I'm wondering if, in your conversation with the premiers last night, if you were able to give them sort of a timetable for how the vaccine deliveries will ramp up. You mentioned just now that they'll ramp up in February, but I think they're probably hoping for some concrete numbers so that they can plan going forward, especially with the requirement that these vaccines receive a second dose within a certain amount of time.
Yes, that's exactly the issue that we're all working together on right now. The need for predictability allows provinces to schedule deliveries, to schedule inoculations, to have that most efficient possible system. That's why we're pleased that we're able to confirm exactly what doses they'll be getting every single week in January, and we're going to be passing along information on the schedule for February and March soon. We need to get it from the companies themselves. It's not the federal government that decides that. And as soon as we get more information from the companies, we will pass that immediately along to provinces so they can plan. We need to make sure we're being as open and transparent and rapid about it so that we can get vaccinations both to the provinces and from the provinces into people's arms as quickly as possible. And on that, we're all working together. Je pense que c'est extrêmement important qu'on ait le plus de clarté possible sur l'échéancier des livraisons des vaccins. C'est pour ça qu'on était très content de pouvoir donner exactement l'échéancier pour le mois de janvier, pour les prochaines semaines de janvier, et que dès qu'on reçoit l'information des compagnies pour février et mars, on va le passer immédiatement aux provinces. Ça permet de mieux planifier, de mieux s'organiser et surtout de pouvoir livrer de façon plus efficace et plus rapide les vaccins aux personnes les plus vulnérables. C'est ce sur quoi on est en train de travailler tous ensemble.
A follow-up question, Ryan?
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to ask you, in your opening remarks today, you said that the riots at Capitol Hill on Wednesday were incited by the current president, by President Trump. He has a significant amount of support within his own party. There are congressmen and senators who support him. And of course, he's still president for 13 more days. Do you worry about damaging Canada's relationship with the U.S. by those comments?
I think it's extremely important that we be there to defend democracy and the principles that Canadians and indeed Americans and people around the world hold dear. And recognizing that words have consequences, that choices made by people in power can have direct impact not just on behaviors but on our very institutions is an important thing.
Next question, operator.
Merci. Prochaine question, Mélanie Marquis, La Presse. À vous.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Pour revenir sur vos propos concernant ce qui s'est passé au Capitole un peu plus tôt cette semaine, mercredi, vous dites que les extrémistes ont été incités par le président. Pouvez-vous préciser votre pensée, inciter à quoi, pardon, une insurrection, un coup d'État? Comment est-ce que vous définissez ce qui s'est passé?
Écoutez, je pense qu'on a tous vu ce que le président a dit. On a tous vu les scènes horrifiantes d'une foule violente qui voulait renverser nos institutions, les institutions démocratiques aux États-Unis. C'est un rappel à nous tous que les choix qu'on fait en tant que politiciens, les mots qu'on utilise, comment on se positionne, ont des conséquences directes, pas juste sur les choix qu'on fait en tant que société, mais la nature même de nos institutions.
Un suivi, là?
Oui, en suivi, il y a hier, vous savez que parmi les extrémistes, il y avait notamment le groupe Proud Boys. Hier, le chef du NPD, Jagmeet Singh, demandait à votre gouvernement d'inscrire ce groupe-là parmi la liste des entités terroristes. Êtes-vous d'avis qu'il faudrait franchir cette étape-là?
Les décisions par rapport au listage de groupes terroristes est fait en coordination avec nos agences de sécurité. Ça a été d'ailleurs une première pour le Canada sous ce gouvernement en 2019 qu'on a listé des groupes extrémistes de droite comme étant des entités terroristes. On en a d'autres qu'on a avancées récemment. Et on va continuer de lutter attentivement contre cet extrémisme violent qu'on voit de plus en plus inquiétant à travers le monde, y compris ici au Canada. Nos agences de sécurité prennent ça très au sérieux, tout comme notre gouvernement, et on va continuer de faire tout ce qu'on peut pour repousser contre la haine et la violence.
Glenn McGregor, CTV News. Prime Minister, 1,000 more jobs lost at WestJet today, on top of all the other jobs that have been lost in the airline industry. You've been standing in the spot since the spring, saying that you're negotiating with the airlines to try and help them, and yet here we are in January, still no industry-specific package to help the airline industry. When is it coming, and what is the holdup?
We have invested close to $1.5 billion in support for airline companies in this country to support workers with the wage subsidy, with other measures, because we know that the airline industry is extremely hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. People shouldn't be traveling, and that, of course, is a direct challenge for the airline industries to manage through. At the same time, we've made it very clear that we expect people to be reimbursed. We expect regional routes to be protected. We expect certain things from the airline industry, and those discussions about how we're going to make sure that people are protected as we offer supports are continuing.
On vaccines, we're hearing that some countries have been paying a premium to get some of the approved vaccines, with the Pfizer vaccine in particular, Israel paying more than the United States. You've refused to say how much Canada is paying per dose, even though it is the government of Canada's money, and that's not very transparent, and I hope you will change your mind and give more information about those contracts. But I'm curious about whether or not Canada has considered paying a premium price to get more vaccine delivered faster, and if not, why not? Because it seems to be penny wise, pound foolish to not spend more on vaccines if we can get them into people's arms quicker?
From last spring onwards, we knew that securing sources of vaccines would be essential to get Canadians through this pandemic. That's why we worked very early with potential vaccine companies and were among the first to secure contracts with many of them. We have ended up in the enviable position of having the largest array of access to the top vaccine companies around the world for Canadians, and indeed more doses per capita for Canadians than for just about any other country in the world. Of course, we need to make sure we're getting those doses as quickly as possible, and I can assure you that we continue ongoing conversations with the companies about accelerating the schedule of delivery so we can get Canadians vaccinated as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And the Minister of Procurement, Anita Anand, will be at the noon press conference and can answer further questions on this.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry with CBC. You've been talking about getting all Canadians, or anyone who wants a vaccine, vaccinated by the fall. Are you still confident about that? And I just want to know, are you sort of basing that on vaccines that have yet to be approved?
We have secured a very strong array of different vaccines, potentially as they move forward. The Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine are approved. The Johnson & Johnson, the AstraZeneca are in the Health Canada rolling evaluation process right now. The experts who are in charge of our vaccine portfolio and indeed the schedule are confident that we are going to be able to vaccinate every Canadian who wants it by September. That will be significant in terms of getting through this pandemic and making sure that next winter looks very different from this one. But indeed, as vaccines roll out, we're hoping for 3 million Canadians to be vaccinated by the end of March. And into the spring, we hope to see many, many more millions of Canadians vaccinated as well. But we hold to September as the date in which every Canadian who wants one will be able to have gotten a vaccine.
En français?
Nous nous sommes commis à avoir tout le monde au Canada qui veut un vaccin vacciné d'ici septembre. Ça va être important de pouvoir arriver là. On a bien des doses qu'on a sous contrat de différentes compagnies et les experts qui gèrent notre système de vaccination sont confiants qu'on va arriver à septembre en 2021 comme étant le moment clé.
And on the events this week in Washington, you've met with Donald Trump, you've spoken with him, you've negotiated with him. I'm wondering if you ever expected Donald Trump's presidency to end this way.
I think throughout the past 4 years, we have learned as a country and indeed as a world that the Trump administration was unpredictable and posed certain challenges, but at the same time, we've been able to work through in a responsible way, defending Canadian interests and moving forward in a way that always makes it very clear what our values are. We were able to renegotiate NAFTA in a way consistent with our values and our approaches and defend Canadian interests significantly in that area and in many other areas. Obviously, there is going to be much said and written about in the history books over the coming years about this time, but my focus has always been and will always be how to make sure Canadians are best represented, best defended, and best supported as we move through this world. And that's what we've done with this administration and what I'm very much looking forward to doing with President Biden as of a couple of weeks from now. Je pense que les Canadiens se sont toujours attendus à ce que, en tant que gouvernement, nous défendions nos valeurs, nos principes et surtout nos intérêts face au gouvernement américain qui, on le sait tous, a été imprévisible et des fois a présenté de vrais défis en termes de relations. Mais en même temps, je rappelle qu'on a su renégocier l'ALENA de façon à défendre nos valeurs et même de créer des bénéfices et des opportunités pour les travailleurs, les entreprises canadiennes, même sous un régime qui pouvait être pas mal difficile. Et on va continuer de garder le cap sur le besoin de défendre les intérêts canadiens dans les années à venir avec le nouveau président Biden quand il arrivera dans une semaine ou deux.
Hello, Prime Minister Mike Blanchfield, Canadian Press. Following on that, how concerned are you or were you that President Trump's exhortations on Wednesday would be heard by groups like the Proud Boys and others in Canada? And what concerns did you have about what President Trump was saying about creating potential threats to Canada's national security?
Well, we know that even as we watch with extreme concern everything unfolding in the United States over these past few days, that we are not immune to that in Canada, that we have a responsibility as Canadians to continue to lead with respect, to engage substantially with different points of view, and to never resort to violence as a way of impacting public discourse. That is something that Canadians have recommitted to across the country over these past days, and we will continue to be extremely vigilant to remember that the choices we make as leaders, as politicians, have consequences. What we choose to say, what we choose not to say, how we choose to say it, does have an impact on Canadians, encourages people to do some things, discourages them to do others. We need to be more responsible, all of us, in how we approach civil society and community engagement. And that's something that I think we are all rededicated to after seeing what can happen in the United States and elsewhere. Je pense que c'est extrêmement important de se souvenir que nous avons tous une responsabilité en tant que citoyens, mais aussi en termes de dirigeants, de bien choisir nos propos, de faire les bons choix pour rassembler les gens, pour respecter les différents points de vue et ne jamais laisser de l'espace pour la haine, pour l'extrémisme, pour la violence. Nous nous devons d'apprendre de ce qui s'est passé aux États-Unis et de s'assurer que nous sommes en train de se respecter les uns les autres et de travailler ensemble pour le bien commun au Canada, sachant qu'on ne va pas toujours être d'accord sur tout, mais qu'on devrait toujours être d'accord sur le besoin de condamner la haine, la violence et l'extrémisme.
Just to follow up on the question earlier about other countries such as Israel perhaps paying more for vaccines and changing the economic dynamic of all of this, do these actions undermine Canada's efforts to negotiate fair contracts to purchase these products? And are you considering changing the terms of those contracts or trying to pay more to do what you need to do because the landscape is changing?
I know that Minister Anand will have more to say because she's the one who is in direct contact with the vaccine companies as we work to bring more doses more quickly to Canada. But we have excellent relations with the various vaccine companies, and the way we are demonstrating our ability to deliver for Canadians across the country, this really big vaccination program continues to be a proof point on the fact that we should be continuing to receive more and more doses quickly as we work with companies from around the world. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.